Hi, everybody. How you doing? It's me, Mr. Moohead, in the wonderful world of sports. And joining me on Moohead Radio is the Moose from England.
Boo.
And in the next however long it takes, we'll be talking about the hiring of a new coach for the Cavaliers, what it means not only to the players, but the roster itself. And we'll be talking about the amazing 23 game over 500 Guardians, how they're accomplishing it, and some of these prospects that have been called up and what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking about them. So I hope everybody is seeing this. My service has warned me that YouTube has been having some live issues, and I'm hoping that this is okay, good. So it is working. So, hey, we're all together on this.
We are.
Yeah. If you're living in a cave.
I have been living in a cave. I had no idea that the Cavs got a new coach. There's a lot going on over here. So you're going to have to tell me what's going on.
All right. The Cavaliers hired Kenny Atkinson as the head coach. A lot of people are asking, why did they do that? And I will just simply tell you this. That came down to two men. Everybody knows that. It came down to Borrego and it came down to Kenny Atkinson. Atkinson's 57 years old. Borrego's 46 years old. Atkinson has been a long-time assistant coach and a one-time 3-year span coach for the Nets. Okay. So his career record is 118 wins, 189 losses because he was with the team during a rebuild situation. And needless to say, he was kind of hoisted out of there once the Nets went full bore Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant in the days where they actually thought they were a franchise. Kenny Atkinson is a proponent of pushing the ball up and down the court with a faster pace of play. He is considered an experienced hand, but none of these are the reasons why he was hired as the head coach. It was because Dan Gilbert wanted him, to the exclusion of his own front office. Wow. They had a second round of interviews because they were split. The front office obviously had an interest in Borrego, and Dan Gilbert really focused in on Atkinson, which is a little scary to a lot of fans because people remember that Dan Gilbert had a good feeling about Jim Beeline, and we know what happened. We know what happened with that. He also had a good feeling about David Blatt.
What about Byron Scott? Did he have a good feeling about him too?
Well, at least Byron Scott had experience. Beeline never was in the NBA.
No, he was awful.
He was awful, is right. And then David Blatt had never been in the NBA.
And he was awful too.
So we're not going to lump Kenny Atkinson in with these other two people because he has been around the NBA and been a head coach at the NBA level. To me, less significant as to what Kenny Atkinson believes in. I think what you're going to find if this is a typical Dan Gilbert hire is that there will be an assistant coach halfway up his ass, and who will be the next piece in line if Kenny Atkinson can't get the job done.
Yeah, and you'll be ringing them up at 3 a.m. saying, "What about this? Why don't you do that?"
Kenny Atkinson's 57 years old, and this is probably the last go-round. Because he just doesn't have a track record as being much of anything besides a 3-year guy head coach and like a 9-10-year assistant coach, associated with good franchise like the Warriors. Yes. But that the primary reason he was hired is because the owner wanted to hire him. Now, the thing that's of interest to me is how it's going to affect the roster of the Cleveland Cavaliers, because there are a lot of questions that are unanswered. With the hiring of Kenny Atkinson, there are two players with the Cavaliers right now who have experience playing for Kenny Atkinson, and that would be Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen. Both of those players played with him when he coached the Nets.
Yeah.
Which for me is a little bit bad news because I frankly don't want either of those players on the Cavaliers. But be that
Okay.
as it may, Karis LeVert,
We all know him. We've complained about him so many times.
but here's the thing. We're making a shift in the entire offensive concept of the team.
Okay.
To get into the set sooner, to play more transition ball, and to push the ball up the floor more. And the reason Kenny Atkinson likes to do this is because his teams shoot a hell of a lot of three-point shots.
Okay.
Not that the Cavaliers didn't, but the Cavaliers didn't make them, and they weren't really very open shots. And
they were never open to shoot them, yeah.
And that's because, basically the players who technically were allegedly capable of shooting them would be Strus and Niang and Okoro somewhat. They were too busy watching Darius Garland dribbling the ball or watching Karis LeVert dribble the ball or watching Donovan Mitchell dribble the ball. And the ball movement side to side wasn't fast enough to really do much for, players who are like Sam Merrill, who kind of, by the time people figured out that he was a dangerous open shooter, the ball movement just got slower and slower because JB Bickerstaff has a history of slow and slower. This is going to be just the opposite. Now, what's of interest to me is not who used to play for him, but how do you play that kind of game with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen?
How's that going to work? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are a number of things, and with Darius Garland and with people who are accustomed to playing a certain way under JB Bickerstaff. I'm less concerned about Donovan Mitchell because Donovan Mitchell is going to be a ball-centric player, but deservedly so because he is a star in the NBA.
Yeah.
So he's going to do what he's going to do, and he has a lot of leverage right now. And people are saying, well, he hasn't signed an extension yet, Mr. Moohead. But let me remind you that if you go back into the news and you look at where Donovan Mitchell went on a little bit of a respite vacay, he went to Paris, France. Okay?
Very nice, by the way. I've been there a couple of times.
If you don't mind people urinating in the street.
Oh, that happens everywhere. That probably happens in Sarasota, Florida.
This is my friend, Latrine.
Toulouse Latrine.
Yes. So he was there. And the interesting thing is, about 3 weeks earlier, Kenny Atkinson was hired by the French national basketball team to help them do better in the Olympics because they had been really steamrolled. So the interesting thing was that also coincided at the time when the Cavaliers organization were getting sick of JB Bickerstaff.
Aren't we all?
So, but they decided to keep him. If you remember, right before the All-Star game, and it was and Dan Gilbert. Well, I should do it with he can use this hand, I guess, the itchy trigger finger, and I'm absolutely positive, not guessing, in other words, that there was contact.
Yeah,
there had to be contact.
Oh, does that sound like tampering?
No, I'm not going to say anything like that.
You can't say anything. You can't say that.
No, but what I can say is that Donovan Mitchell gave this his blessing. That's what I can tell you. This is what it means. It's what it means to me. Now, that doesn't necessarily it doesn't mean that is necessarily the truth, but it's what it means to me.
Okay.
Now, and yes, I was just lucky that I said that Atkinson was going to be the guy. It was dumb luck. Just like what I'm going to tell you today is going to end up being dumb luck. I got dumb luck on my side. Luck be a lady tonight. I got luck on my side.
Pal Joey.
Yeah, very good. And you're old enough to actually remember Pal Joey, the movie.
I remember the Rat Pack. I was there with JFK and Peter Lawford.
Holy cow. I'm not going to get into that much detail, for goodness sakes. So what we have is a failure to communicate. What we have is Donovan Mitchell satisfied. He's going to sign his extension. So everybody shut the fuck up. He's going to sign his extension. Okay. Now, 2 years after he signs the extension, I can't promise what Donovan Mitchell's going to do.
Yeah, well, probably won't all be alive by then anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you anything about that. So he's going to sign his extension. So he's set. Now, the question is, what about the players that surround him? What is going to become of them? Now, Mobley is untouchable at this point within the organization, but there's going to be a major change. Is he a 4 or is he a 5?
Or is he a 4.5?
You have Jared Allen, who is a standardized 5, but he never seems to be there when the team needs him in a crucial moment. And it's 2 years running, and I say, if the Cavaliers were smart, they would deal him. All right. Now, if they're going to look to pick up the pace of play, let's understand why JB Bickerstaff went with 2 big men, even though it really didn't work. But in the beginning, he was so sold on the whole thing. The reason is because we had 2 small guards. Donovan Mitchell is not a big man. He's built. He's strong. He's not tall.
Was he like 6'3" at the most?
Yeah, 6'2" to 6'3". 6'2" to 6'3". That's what he is. And Darius Garland is pushing to be called 6'1".
Yeah, he's 5'11" probably, or whatever.
So Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, very small backcourt.
And they're taller than me, but I'm tiny.
Yeah, but from a defensive perspective, not so good. And to tell you the truth, Darius Garland is like a waif by NBA standards. He's not built well. He's not strong. And people were getting by him, getting physical with him, getting by him on defense. And I think the whole idea was they knew that those 2 guys were not going to be great defensive players. So what JB felt was let them penetrate and deal with 2 long-armed big men.
Yeah, well, that never works. Never let people penetrate. Yeah, just don't do it. You'll end up getting pregnant,
But the whole trick to this defense, if of the JB Bickerstaff defense, was the notion of the team cheering on this 3-second defensive violation. And the reason was because they were floating some of these big men toward the people who were dribbling the ball to try to stop penetration that way. And that was proof that they were following the narcissistic JB Bickerstaff's scheme.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Is it going to be Mobley at the 5, Mobley at the 4? And I say, I hope they trade Jared Allen. Now, with that being said, I would like to have Brandon Ingram, and I would like Jared Allen to go where they love him, to the New Orleans Pels, because the Pels ain't never going nowhere as long as Zion Williamson is there, because I'm going to get lucky again and tell you Zion is lazy. Oh, he's lazy. Brandon Ingram wants to get the fuck out of there. There's a lot of people who want to get the fuck out of there. But, they sold their soul for Zion Williamson, and Zion he doesn't practice hard. He's fat Allen Iverson, and he's hurt all the time.
Oh,
so
he's hurt more than I am.
Oh yeah.
Mark. Mark,
Yeah, why don't
give
you
my
wheel me
wheelchair."
out there and I'll check into the game? Yeah, I mean, this is the guy who, when he was 19 years old in college, that Mike Krzyzewski said, "I'm going to have to limit your minutes, Zion."
Yeah, yeah, he was too old then. He was like Greg Olden old.
You know, he's a fat, out of shape. He
Yeah.
didn't have the wind to do it. Really,
Wow.
a whole bizarre scenario. So I'd like if Brandon Ingram could come to Cleveland, that fills a need for the team, because what would happen then? Evan Mobley would play the 5, and Ingram would play a 4 position. And then what it would happen is you would then be dealing with probably Max Strus out there, because you need him because he's perpetual motion. And following him behind him on the bench would be, it's not going to be George Niang. I mean, George Niang may still be sitting on the bench, but there ain't nobody who's going to increase the speed of play like Kenny Atkinson is, who's going to look to George Niang and say, "Now push the ball." Yeah, not going to be not going to happen. So Sam Merrill will be a guy who comes off the bench to be another 3-point scorer. The real issue here, and where I'm going to roll the dice, is to tell America and Cavs fans that Darius Garland has no chance of being on the team. All right?
Okay.
I know nothing. I know nothing at all. If I did know something, I would tell you. But
Sergeant Schultz, you know nothing. I see nothing.
No, I mean, seriously,
Okay.
I have no evidence of this whatsoever. No evidence. But it just strikes me as interesting, because you've got another moving piece in Isaac Okoro, who could come or go, predicated on how much money it would cost the Cavaliers or what they might be able to get for him in a trade scenario. The fact is that Okoro was being forced to guard 3s, and he's at 6'4", too small to do it.
Yeah.
Now the question is, what are you going to do if you have a 6'4" but strong physical kind of guy like Okoro, if he guards 2s and not 3s? And can you use him in a sense, either in the starting lineup or off the bench? Will he be able to fit into the scheme that Kenny Atkinson brings?
Wow. That's
So,
an idea.
well, these are all open possibilities. But the thing I cannot see is leaving 2 small guards out on the floor. And if you're going to speed up the pace of play, keeping a guy who physically is hurt as much as Darius Garland is.
Oh, God, he gets killed.
And if you're moving up and down the floor and asking him to penetrate, he's going to get bounced around like a pinball, and he's going to end up with more broken bones and God knows what else.
Yeah, he won't have any cheekbones left. It'll just be plastic under his eyes. I mean,
yeah, he's getting beaten up, and the trade value for him might be as good as
now's the time. Now's the time. I mean, what we need is, like, I'm going to throw out an old name. It doesn't have to be exactly like this guy, but we need some Sean Kemp type of guy. Move Mobley definitely to the 5, but we need some guy that actually is tough and can score tough points and beat up the other team.
Well, I mean, even a 35-year-old Marcus Morris was able to do something. It's just
that
JB wouldn't play him. JB just wouldn't play him because JB didn't like the fact that Marcus Morris would talk, and he thought he was too loose-lipped, and that's why.
Well, they sink ships, loose-lipped.
Yes, and again, why there was no coordination between. I think the team was into the playoffs. They couldn't fire JB at that point. I told you back then he should have been fired on the spot.
Oh, January.
Or no, even just before the playoffs for what he did. He, by refusing to play a front office acquisition that was designed to help the team because George Niang was fucking up on the court, not making any shots, and he couldn't play any appreciable defense, and he couldn't make it up and down the floor. By insisting on playing him and not playing Marcus Morris, and you saw at the end, Marcus Morris could still shoot 3-point shots.
Oh, yeah, he had that one game where he went off, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just makes you wonder, JB was coaching the team for himself. He wasn't coaching for anybody else, and it's the unfortunate reality that he should have been terminated way back when, but it didn't happen last year, which it should have at the end of the year. And it didn't happen during the regular season by the midtime, by the All-Star game, which it should have. And if it were me and I knew what was going on, what I know now, I'd have terminated him. Not because I wanted to be a big, strong arm kind of guy, but because the team spirit was crushed. We didn't have a chance in the playoffs, and it took everything to beat an inexperienced Orlando team, for God's sakes. So, and as far as having the 20th pick, Amsterdam, why don't you take 20 picks at this? We're
going to get somebody from the wheelchair team for the 20th pick.
Yeah. Mark, push me down the lane. I'll dish off to somebody. No. So I look at Darius Garland and I say, his body's beaten up. He's small, and he's going to be forced to push the ball. He was turning the ball over. And my belief is not only is he not going to be on the team, his exit is going to be swift. Like, really more swift than Taylor. I mean swift.
Wow.
I mean swift.
Wow.
It's going to be a
just
Swiftie.
Shake them off, huh?
A real Swiftie. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, wait, I got something. I hate it when I get something in my eye. I know nothing at all about this. I know nothing at all about this. What I'm guessing, I'm gambling, which I always preach against.
Yeah, don't do it.
I'm not putting any money on this, folks. But when you woke up today and Atkinson's your coach, but I told you that. If you're following me on Twitter,
yeah, I don't do that. So
no, I mean, if you're following me and you're seeing what I'm writing, then I'm just the luckiest guy on earth.
You and Luke Gehrig, yeah.
I'm hot, but the problem is, don't bet on me because I'm a cow and cows don't remain hot for very long. So I'm trying to strike while the iron's hot here. So my belief is that Darius Garland will be gone right quick. And it will change the entire philosophy of how each player will be used. And I believe that Okoro, if he stays, will be used, as the defensive player, but also he's good at taking the ball to the basket and drawing fouls because he's a big guy. I mean, one thing about, he came into the league young, just like Garland did, but Okoro is built. He actually works out in the offseason. But he's never had a fair chance. They brought him in because he was a defensive specialist, and then JB proceeds to make him guard people who are 4 inches taller than he is. And then it's like, well, he's not that good a defensive player. And it's like, oh, shut the fuck up. I mean,
yeah, you should see me guarding people 5 inches taller than me. It's absolutely hilarious.
Believe me, he can play defense. The problem with Okoro is that he needs wide open threes, and he proved that he can make them at about a 39% clip. The problem is he has to be so open because he's just going to shoot a set shot. It's not like he can shoot a step back three. Like if a guy flies by him, it's not like he can step back and do the Kevin Durant thing. He just has to be staring down the three. And if he misses a couple of them, those are the last threes he'll take in the game. Yeah. He gets very gun shy.
Yeah, he has no confidence whatsoever.
But that again could be because of JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, And we're going to find out if Kenny Atkinson can, depending on who ends up being on the roster, so people are saying, well, what's going to happen at the guard position if Darius Garland isn't there? You stupid cow. And
there's a million people out there, even Joey Porter or whatever his name is.
CPJ is a guy who is a point guard.
Yep.
Now, he's not big either, but he has much more hops and much more athletic skill than Darius Garland.
Yep.
He's got a bigger body. He's a more mature physical player. And when he goes to the basket, he can finish with a dunk, not just by flipping it off the backboard. He's not nearly as good a three-point shooter as Darius Garland was a couple of years ago. But again, it's all about what value you can get for somebody. And I think the value is going to be right for Darius Garland to no longer be on the team. So, these are things, and the press is all over, Atkinson's been around for 11 seasons as an assistant coach. The history is real clear. His first year was 42-40, and he had a good year. And that was in 2018, 2019. They made it into the first round of the playoffs and got beat in 5 games to the process of the Philadelphia 76ers. But to give you an idea, that season, the leading scorer for Kenny Atkinson's Nets was D'Angelo Russell.
Oh God!
So there was no defense being played there,
and no offense either.
and here's why he did a good job that season. They made it into the playoffs despite the fact that the team gave away 3 top 10 picks, one of which was a pick swap from 2016 to 2018. Those picks that they gave away turned into Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Colin Sexton. I mean, not Kenny Atkinson's fault, folks. I mean, the Ruski who owns the Nets is brain damaged, and nobody talks about this guy.
Yeah, Moose and Squirrel. Yeah,
it was like, this guy has lots of money, and he came in, but he hasn't done dick. I mean, he had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and they didn't want to play there. He made New York an unsavory place to play basketball. God only knows what he did and how he did it. Yeah. So in 2018-2019, Atkinson finished 5th in the voting for the NBA Coach of the Year.
Wow.
And a lot of overseas basketball experience as well. I mean, he played professional basketball, Kenny Atkinson did, back when the game was played under the rim. And he played for teams in France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, and he went to the University of Richmond. He was a Spider, and something he has in common with Donovan Mitchell. And he was playing in 87, 88, 89. And so it's been a while. All of this stuff doesn't really, in 4 seasons with the Nets, his teams finished in the top 10 in the NBA in pace.
Okay.
So that's his style of going about things. And they shot 3-pointers, including second in the league in 2017, 2018, because they had no fucking players. And that's why Karis LeVert was there, because he could shoot all he wanted to from behind the arc. And he was better there, I guess, than he was with Cleveland. But be that as it may, I don't see Karis LeVert as much of a basketball player. But they can't get rid of the whole roster, folks. No. They gotta make swaps that make sense, that make the team grow from where they're presently at. And it isn't that I have anything personally against Darius Garland at all. So it isn't like I'm saying horrible things. And it was like I said when I said that JB Bickerstaff needed to be gone. and that, you know, maybe a really nice guy. And I've never heard anything that was bad about him until after the season, and after he was fired, when he started indirectly bad mouthing Jared Allen. I thought that was Hugh Jackson-esque, but other than that, I can't say that anything bad about JB Bickerstaff. I just think that he and I would manage people very, very differently. That would be the nicest way of putting it. Yeah. So, you know, and then you've got the Cleveland.com writers saying that, you know, the problem with Kenny Atkinson is that he's never really been able to get a veteran player like Donovan Mitchell to buy in because, you know, but it has nothing to do with that. What it is that Kenny Atkinson is happy to have a fucking job. He's happy to be a head coach, and he's going to realize very quickly that just because the guy he's working for had a massive stroke doesn't make him any less of a prick. Okay? I'm just being direct and blunt about this. Dan Gilbert is a hard man to coach for, and there is a group of people who will tell you the same thing. And there are the people who coached for him. He's just not an easy guy to work for. And, you know, this has nothing to do with whether Spida buys in or doesn't buy. Look, the smart move for money is to sign the extension, stay with Cleveland, and then start bitching after 2 years saying, well, I want out and I want to trade. Because that's how it's done. You get the money first, and then you become a fucking whiner. And then you sulk like Kyrie Irving did, and you make sure that the team gets rid of you so that you can go where you want to go. This is how business is done. So there is no risk of Donovan Mitchell leaving Cleveland right now because that money is something he's got to grab. And then, depending on what happens with Kenny Atkinson in the system and how the team does, he has a decision to make. And I can guarantee you, he's not going to stay in Cleveland. Let's be real. I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes. So this one, as the inimitable Jimmy Watkins of Cleveland.com, the biggest muckraker of the bunch, you know, he has this one glaring hole on his resume. You know, it's like, fuck you, Jimmy. Fuck you. Your wife has a glaring hole. You know,
wow.
I really don't want to get into it.
No.
So
probably he doesn't either.
We'll see. He has one of those spelunking outfits, you know.
Oh dear. I apologize for that one. Sensitive viewers.
Well, I mean, the horrible thing is, you know, Jimmy Watkins was with his woman, and you know, he went down on her and he fell in, you know.
Yeah.
And he was
couldn't get out.
Yeah, he couldn't get out. He's walking around, you know, and he's trying to think to himself, you know, maybe I can find like a flashlight down here so I can find my way out.
Yeah.
So Jimmy's looking and he's looking and he's looking. And all of a sudden, in the dark, he runs into somebody. And he goes, what are you doing down here? And the guy says, well, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm looking for a flashlight to see if I could get the hell out of here. And the other guy says, fuck the flashlight. I'm looking for my car keys and I can just back us out of here if I can.
Wow. That was a long way to go for that.
Well, yeah, it was.
It was a long way.
I could have done it like Gilbert Gottfried, but it hurts my voice.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that. All right. So when Darius Garland is gone, you'll remember this day and you'll say, something? Yeah. Hey, the cow was still lucky. Or he's going to start the season and they're going to shake their heads and say, Mr. Moohead, you were way off base. And, you know, either way, I can live with myself, really.
Yep. How's the weather up there? I hear it's rather hot.
Yeah, well, today was better. Today was much better. We had 5 consecutive 90+ degree weather days, and today was down at about 81 and a beautiful sunny day with lesser humidity. Yeah, so it was
Wow.
nice. It was nice up here today.
You take Topaz outside when it's that hot?
No,
'Cause
not
when
in
I
the
hurt his
90s.
paw.
No! I
No, it
mean,
hurt his paw or something.
yeah, well, we don't have them running around, but you know, we have like a deck in the back, you
All
know,
right.
and well, Rox will tell you how big, you know, my deck is back
Yeah,
there.
you got a
And
big deck in the back.
huge deck. Yeah.
Huge deck.
Uh,
Bigger than Dickie V's walk-in closet.
Oh, baby, that's a huge deck you got there, man. Yeah. I should be doing the older Dickie V because he's got, you know.
Yeah, he's got problems. Yeah.
So let's see. Yeah, Captain Fierce is saying, yeah, if you're looking strictly at his record, and that's what Jimmy Watkins is doing while he's looking for the car keys to back out of there. You're not going to find it in Kenny Atkinson's resume that he's a great NBA head coach, but you're going to find that they're going to hire an assistant coach who's going to be there to take over for him when he gets fired. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the way it plays out. All right, enough. We'll
Enough
see.
of that.
We'll see what happens. I do want to talk about the Guardians because the Guardians,
The less I follow of them, the better they are. You know,
well, then
it's
keep
amazing.
missing the games because
I'm missing the games. I'm doing other things.
I mean, some really incredible statistical kind of maybe anomalies, maybe not. Last year at this time, they had hit 48 home runs. This year, they've hit 85
Good Lord.
in the same number of games. Now, that is highly unusual.
No one would have thought that before.
Josh Naylor's biggest major league home run season was 20 home runs. He's got that many already. All right.
Unbelievable.
And already Will Brennan has hit more home runs up to this point, 8, than he has in any other season. Stephen Kwan hit his 7th yesterday, which is more than he's ever hit in his seasons in the major leagues. I mean, people are driving the ball.
Don't tell me we have a hitting coach now.
We do. And
that's unbelievable.
This is a direct result of a change of philosophy. And I'll tell you, let me grab a.
But they got rid of Francona, and now they got a guy that can teach how to hit.
Well, you know, Francona needed to retire.
Yeah, he was old like us.
And not only that, he'd been through
all
of the frustration with that front office and ownership. I mean, to be honest with you, Terry Francona was a really fine major league baseball
he should be in the
coach.
Hall of Fame for what being a manager.
But with the health issues he was facing and the sheer frustration of who he was working for, it was like, you know. So what happened during the offseason is that the players were taken under their wing by the new hitting coach. And why am I'm blanking?
I don't know his name either. So
no, I'm blanking on his name. And I'm looking for his name desperately. Somebody in the chat room will know his
Rick
name.
May will know who that is. If
yeah.
Still out there.
Who's the guy who's the hitting coach, Rick? You'd know that. So at any rate, the philosophy of the previous regime, shall we say, was voiced by Stephen Kwan, who said the stress was contact. Don't strike out, don't strike out, don't strike out. Now, this was an argument that I got into with one of the brothers who owns the
Grimm.
God almighty.
The Grimm brothers.
Yeah. And the notion that, home runs and how important home runs were and all of that. And the fact of the matter is the Guardians right now, I think I want to say they're 10th in the league in home runs. And they're swinging away instead of just trying to peck and poke. and learning how to drive the ball is part of the game. And honestly, Stephen Kwan, it was funny. I was talking to a friend and saying, this guy is like Ichiro Jr.,
Yeah.
He just gets his bat on so many balls that he can drive it the opposite way. He can pull it between the first and second baseman. He can rope line drives down the line, and he can leg things out from singles to doubles. So anything that goes down the line, he's going to take an extra base on you. But now he's bringing his hands in, and teams are trying to figure out a way to pitch this guy. And what they were realizing was when they were throwing away from him, that he was just reaching out over the plate and slapping it to left field, getting on base. When they were throwing the ball at him, down and in, he was hooking it down the right field line. So what they started to do was to try to throw the ball higher in his strike zone to raise his.
Yeah, that would be the next logical step, would be to throw it higher.
And it worked briefly, but then he started hitting line drives he's got such quick hand reaction and hand-eye coordination that it's really remarkable to look at. So then they started throwing him down and in, and he was pulling his hands in and elevating the ball and hitting it over the right field wall. Plus, with the heat that we've had in Northeast Ohio,
boom, the ball jumps.
Ball's carrying. And it's not because of wind tunnels and all this stupidity that you're seeing, in the press. Because
really?
How
is there a wind tunnel in Jacobs Field? How does that work?
Look, other teams were hitting home runs too. The ball was flying out of the park the last several games, and a lot of Guardian players are experiencing better home run figures than they have in their careers, just because of a philosophy change that they're telling players to drive the ball and not be afraid to elevate the ball. And it's not going to turn Tyler Freeman into a big home run hitter. It's not going to do that. But what it will do is you take a look at Kwan, who now is will be a double digit, even if it's, 10, 12 home run guy. And he also is going to hit a lot of doubles. But then
he's like Tony Gwynn, but without the weight.
And Jimenez is a guy who's getting on base. Of course, Jose, we know what he can do. Naylor, they're letting him, instead of make contact, to be making contact never made sense for me with him because he's not fast. He doesn't run well. He's overweight, but he obviously has, Chris Valaika. There you go. Chris Valaika. Thank you, Rick.
I still, that still doesn't mean anything to me. He's the hitting coach, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know his story.
Between him and Stephen Vogt. Now, Stephen Vogt almost made me have a stroke in the last game. I don't know who this McKagan guy was who came in out of the bullpen, guy who is a 5 ERA guy in the minor leagues. And he was suddenly on the roster, and it's his first major league appearance. And holy shit, was he horrible. Couldn't throw strikes.
How bad was he?
He was so bad that, he came into the game at 6-2, and it was 6-5 before he got like 2 outs.
Oh, no.
It was just like an unraveling. And he was throwing 89 and 90 miles an hour and hanging pitches. They were leaving the park. They were roping everything. It was terrible. And they wouldn't take him out. They let him finish the inning, and somehow he got out of the inning by picking a guy off first base. Because I swear to God, if he would have had to have pitched to the next guy, he would have given up more. They were just crushing him. And then, fortunately, at 6-5, the bullpen held after that because Heron came in and Henches, and then Hunter Gaddis, and then Clase, and it has shut him down. But these guys are now trying to do more damage with the bat, and Ron, you have a problem on your hands. because Tristan McKenzie isn't getting people out, and he's not anywhere near the strike zone. And there are so many rumors about his velocity going down, that his arms never recovered. But then you have Carrasco, as you point out, who is all about fooling people. In his last game, Cookie pitched a really nice game. He kind of pitched like Oral Hershiser did when Hershiser was old and playing for the Indians. He was getting guys to chase balls out of the strike zone. He's getting ahead of hitters, and he's keeping the ball down. But that hasn't been the case during the course of the year. Cookie is on the absolute downside of his career. The problem is McKenzie is not winning games. You have Gavin Williams, who's ready to come up. He just got done in AAA, doing one of his starts down there and looking good. And he's going to get put up on the roster. The question is, what do you do? Do you replace McKenzie, or do you move Cookie into a long relief situation? And
wow.
The thing is that Carrasco is a team player, and he'll do whatever you ask him to do. But that's a decision that the Guardians are going to have to make here real quick.
I think at this point he's just glad to be alive, really. So there you go. There you have that.
Yeah, he's still playing, and he's still getting paid to play the game he loves. Wow.
Well, I will continue not to watch the Guardians because there's too many things going on. So, and hopefully they'll keep winning. Once I start watching, they'll go right into the toilet. So,
well, when Ben Lively is your second most consistent pitcher, who's 32 years old and was horrific when he played for the Phillies in the National League. When he is your most consistent guy, along with Bybee, and neither guy really is going to get you beyond 5.5 innings because the pitch counts are high, and they're relying a lot on their bullpen. But Gavin Williams will help, but the real question is how they're going to make room for him. It'll be interesting. But I was interested in seeing, before we get out of here, what was happening with Guardian prospects, and obviously Kyle Manzardo hasn't really done a whole hell of a lot. And you stop and you look at the prospects they have in their minor league system, and they're trying to develop big bats. And the thing is, Manzardo does have opposite field power, and the ball jumps off his bat, but he's striking out every 3 times he's at the plate. He's having difficulty making the adjustment from AAA, AA, AAA to the major league pitching, which is not unusual for the first time, coming up. But the problem with Manzardo is he's strictly a DH. He's slow and ambling, can't run, can't defend, doesn't have a good arm, but he can. The ball can jump off his bat. That's what you have there. And I'm really not. And that's right, Rick. This is what we have, and the Orioles are good. They're like 13, 12 games over 500 something. No, I'm sorry. That's incorrect. They're like 21 games over 500. And they're only a game and a half behind the Yankees. I mean, the Orioles have been very good. So we're playing in Baltimore. It's going to be a tough series for the Guardians. We'll see how they.
110 degrees there too, or what's
I don't
the
know.
temperature in Baltimore?
I don't know.
Humid as hell.
Yeah, great park to play in though. And we'll see. The team's got a tremendous amount of spirit. The Guardians really have a good group of guys who work together. So I mean, that's impressive. I was looking at the other, because after looking at Manzardo and saying, he's a guy who's DH, or DH. And realistically, they're not going to play him at first base, which is the only other position he could play, because Naylor is your first baseman, and you really want
him anywhere.
Yeah, you need his bat in the lineup. So what about other, prospects who are in their minor league system. And we've seen Manzardo, a little bit of Jonathan Rodriguez, who has a huge arm but hasn't proven to have a big bat yet. Daniel Schneemann, who's doing extremely well and really looks like he is the utility guy that that the Guardians may need, as opposed to Arias, who's off on paternity leave. But I have a feeling that Arias is going to be moved down because he's just, he's not making contact at all. He's striking out way too many times and leaving too many men on base. But Schneemann's been really good. Rodriguez, no. Manzardo, no. At this point, it hasn't paid off. But now they've brought up Angel Martinez because,
another great name.
Gabriel Arias, I'm sorry, it's a family medical emergency list, which will give, it's going to give Angel Martinez approximately 7 working days to get a chance to get his feet wet. Martinez was hitting 300 at AAA. I went back and looked at his statistics, and his stats would show that he started out, everyone starts out clobber the ball pretty good in single A ball. And then when they get up into double A, triple A, there's a period of adjustment there, and there's a period of adjustment coming to the major leagues. Something about this guy looks like a big league player. The problem is that Angel Martinez, by trade, is shortstop / second baseman, but they're going to introduce him again as the possible alternative to Tyler Freeman, who's all field, can't hit. The question is, how many positions can Angel Martinez play, and can he justify sitting around, or are they just going to bring him back down, which I think they'll do. They'll put him back down and see if he can continue to hit the ball at the AAA level. But he actually has a little bit of power. He's not like a little dinky guy. He's not like Brian Rocchio. He's not, and Rocchio is solid at shortstop. Arias, there's no reason to even bother with Arias at this point. Rocchio is a big league shortstop who just needs to add a little strength to his body just to get a little bit more bang for, his buck at home plate. But Angel Martinez is a guy who, where is he going to break in? And my feeling is they're trying to get him to do outfield work. And it's going to be a real question mark about Tyler Freeman, who's got a great attitude, but is never going to be much of a big league hitter. And he's done a great job defensively. And so you can't afford to put somebody who's just a utility player in center field if they don't know what they're doing. And just look at what happened to Arias. Arias didn't know how to track fly balls, for Christ's sake. And they stopped that experiment real early. But something about Martinez in the limited time that I've seen him play, he looks like he's got a little bit of confidence going for him. He didn't look scared. He was whapping the ball. He had one hit taken away from him. Another one had his first major league hit, and he's hitting the ball hard, pulls the ball a little bit more, they say, than what he should. But he has hit double-digit home runs in the minor leagues, and he's 6 foot 200 pounds. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And,
so what's this, because I've not watched games this year, what's it like without no shift? Does that make a difference does that help the Guardians win games?
Well, it's improved the game period, because it's just like when players, and part of the power outage that Major League Baseball started to see was because of the shift.
Yeah.
Because, people, they just go up there and swing away, and then these big, beefy, burly, non-running guys would they throw 2 infielders on the right-hand side of the field.
Yeah, they throw it to the middle right field, and the guy would catch the long drive. Yeah.
Or just field the ground ball. There's no hole there, and would force the power hitter to become an opposite field hitter, which he's not getting paid to do. So it was all counterintuitive stuff. So, my feeling is that, it's helped, and you can't just play two players in a position to prevent a guy from hitting the ball where he's, and the league wants more home runs. We know the lengths that they went to get more home runs in the past, So, as a, I guess as a prospect is concerned, there's also Chase DeLauder, but he's been hurt, so we're not hearing anything about him. He's a better athlete than Kyle Manzardo is, but it's interesting. Yeah, and that's right, Amsterdam. Schneemann, and during his off season, was working on squaring up balls as far as getting a little more elevation and driving the ball more. The whole team has been working on that. And since really working on that with hitting coach, he's become a much more productive hitter at the plate. He's not a big man, but he's been driving the ball pretty damn hard. It's pretty impressive. So there's that. And as far as
no Cleveland Browns news?
No, I got nothing to say. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the Cleveland Browns until they play.
Correct. Yeah.
They could end up this season, being 6 and
6-11 or 11-6. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? And to speculate is foolishness until we see who actually is healthy when the season begins. I mean, All-Star game voting, if you're going to vote for Stephen Kwan, for God's sakes. He's really deserving, and he's getting closer. He's narrowed the gap by more than 100,000 votes between himself and the last player, who would be the final outfielder who would be on the All-Star roster. The thing that's amazing is Ramirez is strengthening his hold on the top spot amongst third basemen, while even Josh Naylor, Andre Jimenez, and David Fry are among the top 5 vote getters at their respective positions. And I don't even know what position David Fry really is.
Wow.
So, Kwan, who's still hitting a 390, is only 29,000 votes behind Kyle Tucker of the Astros for the third outfield spot in the American League. And boy, I sure as hell hope he makes the All-Star team, because he is really deserving. Of course, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto of the Yankees are ahead of Kwan, and with Kwan has 973,000 votes. And the two Yankees, 2 million votes, more than well over 2 million votes each. So we know who 2 of the outfielders are going to be. All right. And Tucker is on the injured list in Houston. So Kwan might be able to sneak in out there, and he really deserves it. And I'm not saying that Tucker does or he doesn't, but I watch Stephen Kwan play day in, day out, and he deserves it. And I just think that,
Well, isn't it great? Like back in the days when we were young watching this franchise, they had to pick one player from the team because that was the league rule. Nobody actually earned the spot on the All-Star team. They always had to pick one guy, and now we got several. So that's great.
Yeah. So I've told you everything that I think. And that isn't really what I know, but I tell you what I think, and we see what comes of it. But the Guardians are up at 6:40 today. That's when the game actually starts, a little bit earlier. So for all you folks, tune in and check it out. And,
except for me, because I will avoid it. So I don't.
Yeah, we don't need your bad luck. We don't need that at all.
No.
So To everybody, I want to thank you for jumping in and joining me here on Moohead Radio. And we'll be back again come Friday. And hopefully we'll have more information to pass along. Thanks, Bronk. I appreciate you being here. And until next time, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night. Moo.